Hello friends, and welcome to the video. So today I want to talk a bit about awe, and I'm not saying awe, O-R, I mean awe, A-W-E. And this comes up, well, as an English teacher. So as you know, I'm an English teacher. I teach Spanish people how to communicate in English, basically. I'm not a proper English teacher, teaching literature or anything like that. And I have to try to explain what words mean. And sometimes interesting things come up. So with the word awe, you've got these words that we've got, like awesome, which means fantastic, and awful, which means terrible. And they are completely opposite, aren't they? Now, this happens with words, that they come from the same root, but there's something called semantic drift, which is the meaning drifted apart. So in the past, it was used for kind of this feeling of being in front of power, like maybe a king or God. And it, over the centuries, it moved, well, we got awful, which moved towards just really horrible, and awesome, which still retained the kind of the wonder aspect of awe. And now they mean completely different things. Similar to, if you noticed, maybe not, or maybe, also with terrific and terrifying. So again, terrific and terrifying, completely different meanings in modern English. Now, awe is something that's interesting. It's this feeling that we get in old religious texts, because the modern idea of at least Christianity is that God is loving, etc. And then we got some Old Testament stuff that is more about being afraid of God. And people like the loving God aspect, but they don't like the being afraid of God aspect. So that, I think I don't know whether in some forms of evangelical Christianity it is still the main message. But for something that maybe people who are not interested in religion might be able to connect to is, I don't know if you've ever had a bad trip. So in people who have bad trips, or even extreme experiences through meditation, can really scare themselves. It can be really like, I wish I never did this. What have I done to myself? Will I ever be normal again? And a feeling of being absolutely terrified. And that feeling is the feeling of awe. It's this, and it's probably mixed up. They probably have good aspects too. I don't know if the bad trip, fades a bit, and then you can put it in the comments if you don't mind talking about it. It might fade a bit, and you might get this feeling of wonder, but certainly there's a bit of terror in there as well. And this feeling, awe, when we think about religion, about this, you should be afraid of God, we think, you should be afraid of God because the religion wants to control us and wants us to do what the rulers want to say, and that's why they're promoting the religion. But maybe not. Maybe it came from that. Maybe it came from deep mystical experiences of absolute terror in the face of God. The getting close to God through deep contemplative practices, maybe ascetic practices, or possibly, who knows, hallucinogenic stuff, and being absolutely terrified at this immensity. Now, we do have it as well in our everyday lives. You have, well, maybe not everyday lives, but in front of big mountains, this feeling that they're so massive and they make you feel so small. But when you're in front of that, and my experience at least, is it's not like you feel small and useless like we normally do in the modern world, but it's kind of like you're there, you're walking the mountains or in a beautiful big forest, or or at sea, if you've ever gone on a ferry somewhere, and the big waves and this feeling of, or in a thunderstorm, this feeling of immense power, and you don't feel excluded. You feel part of it, and you certainly don't feel like you're controlling it, but you feel you meet something that is beyond your normal everyday conception of things. We have this is how we think the world works, and this is how I fit into it. But then when you're in front of that, when you meet awe, you have this feeling of, this is all so much bigger than my little story. And in Advaita Vedanta and Buddhism, when we try to transcend the separate self, we try to see how this is just a little story we're playing. We see that. Suddenly we are aware of this in Advaita Vedanta, the ultimate subject that can never be objectified, something that is beyond thought, beyond everything. And we are there with it, and we are there part of it. And what happens is that we meet something bigger than we can conceive, and our brain, our mind, has to adapt. It has to change its boundaries. And they have done, I don't want to bring in neuroscience to this too much, but they've done studies into awe walks. So for older people, walking even in a city and looking at big monuments, or just walking every day in your everyday route, but trying to see everything anew, has a positive effect. The mind has to change how it sees you fitting into the world. Your problems become small, and the effect is actually people become more pro-social, and they have a change in the conception of time. So time seems to stretch, and they seem to have more time for others. It doesn't, your own little story becomes smaller. And I think this is the fact that it's been demonstrated scientifically that, music, big social movements, a bit like that bit in Spartacus where, I don't know if you've seen Spartacus, but Spartacus is in trouble. And the Romans say, "Who's Spartacus?" And he says, "I'm Spartacus." And then his friend says, "I'm Spartacus." And then everybody stands up and says, "I'm Spartacus." Things like that, things that really just give you this feeling that things are not as you saw them to be. Music, art, nature, and of course, spirituality. This big ideas, this connection that we have with spirituality that brings us face to face with God in the old sense, or makes us realize how the separate self is so small in comparison to what you really are. So I hope that was interesting. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.